everyone, I'm Kevin Nelson. Here's a look at what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from Rome. The former director of the Vatican Press Office, Joaquin Navarro-Valls, died in his home this past week at the age of 80 after a battle with pancreatic cancer. A member of Opus Dei, Navarro-Valls became the first lay journalist to direct the press office when he was appointed by St. John Paul II in 1984. At his wake on July 6th in Rome, many friends, family, and co-workers reflected on his life.
For 22 years, he communicated official information to the Vatican. So it's only fitting that now many people, including the Vatican, has come to say their goodbyes to Joaquin Navarro-Valls. A side chapel in the Basilica of St. Eugenio in Rome was filled with family and friends who came to pray and remember the life of John Paul II's spokesman, who was always known for smiling.
He always had a sense of humor, at least to me. And you could count on that.
You could always see how much he adored John Paul II. They were truly close. There was a real adoration there.
Era proprio uno.
He was a specialist in evangelization, which was the focus of the communication. He was a communicator of the Word of God, of the Pope's Word, and of the life of the Church and its strength of its positive resources for the transformation of the world. Much of my professional life in the press office was with him. I will always be grateful to him because he helped me grow from a human point of view and from a professional point of view. He was an extraordinarily strong man, extraordinarily brave, and extraordinarily intelligent. All of these three things formed a real leader. For me to preside over the funeral is on one hand something typical for our family of Opus Dei. Opus Dei is a family, and now that the prelate is not in Rome, I'm in a certain sense the father of this family, and therefore I gladly do it with all my heart. I'm very moved because I really loved him very much. As Navarro-Valls was a member of Opus Dei, Vicar General Monsignor Mariano Fazio will celebrate his funeral mass at the Basilica of St. Eugenio on Friday morning at 11 a.m. Rome local time. In times like this, many chose to smile with happy memories instead of cry about the fact that he's gone. One thing is for sure, the Vatican has lost a great friend and professional who was trusted with some of the most valuable news conveyed by the Holy See.
Looking now at news from around the world, in a letter to Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland, Bishop Douglas Crosby of Hamilton, a president of the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops, expressed profound concern over a speech Freeland gave in early June to the House of Commons. The bishop criticized Freeland for equating women's rights with a right to abortion and sexual reproductive rights, and claiming these rights are at the core of the Canadian foreign policy. The Canadian Bishops' Conference also criticized Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for committing $650 million to support abortion funding overseas, when only about $119 million was pledged to help 20 million who risk starvation in South Sudan, Yemen, eastern Nigeria, and Somalia. In news from around the country, at the Convocation of Catholic Leaders, 3,500 men and women, religious bishops, and lay people gathered in Orlando, Florida from July 1st to the 4th to pray, worship, and discuss a new course for the U.S. Catholic Church. Some of the delegates participating in the convocation had a chance to reflect on their experience.
Bring out your joy to the Lord, O you just, for praise is fitting for loyal hearts.
The final day of the Convocation of Catholic Leaders in Orlando, Florida, landed on the 4th of July, and the thousands of participants were urged to not only pray for a united country on Independence Day, but also for a united church.
The challenge is to get to know each other. So I think once that you get to know each other, then you say, hey, we are really united in our faith. We all love God, and we try to love one another.
No matter where we're from, no matter what we look like, no matter our gender, age, anything, we all have a common mission, and this convocation's brought everyone together so we can all meet each other, so we can all support each other.
The fact that we are different does not make us enemies. We are actually different, but we are one family. We have to see ourselves as brothers and sisters. And coming together in such a diverse way to celebrate life, to celebrate the gospel, is a very beautiful way of seeing ourselves as one church.
People have long been speaking. Youth, various ethnic groups have long been speaking, but they just haven't had the opportunity to be passed the mic. What I think is really interesting is that mic is being passed. And I think even more so after this convocation, it can continue to be passed to those people who have something to say and have something to contribute.
Finally, in the news, on July 6th, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and the Conference of European Justice and Peace Commission released a joint declaration calling nations to create a credible and enforceable strategy for the total elimination of nuclear weapons. The declaration, entitled Nuclear Disarmament Seeking Human Security, was released a day before the concluding second UN conference discussing a treaty to ban nuclear weapons internationally. The declaration was signed by Bishop Oscar Cantu, chairman of the U.S. CCB Committee on International Justice and Peace, and Jean-Claude Hollerich, president of the Conference of European Justice and Peace Commission. Bishop Cantu told Catholic News Service that his committee and the European bishops wanted to call attention to the absence of nuclear weapons states, including the United States, from the UN conference. The bishop's intention is to motivate nations possessing nuclear weapons to join the UN meetings and use their influence to reduce nuclear weapons stockpiles. Well, that is all the information we have for you at this time. I'm Kevin Nelson. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week with Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV network.